Hello, this is Roland. I'd like to read something to you now. Something written by Mr. A.W. Tozer. Very nice man. He was very popular years ago in the United States, and he's still widely read. When I lived in Reading, they have a nice little Christian university in Reading called Simpson University. And their theology department, or their theological institute, or whatever you want to call it, is called the A.W. Tozer Institute, I think. Anyway, this is what A.W. Tozer wrote in his book, In Pursuit of God. In this hour of all but universal darkness, one cheering gleam appears. Within the fold of conservative Christianity, there are to be found increasing numbers of persons whose religious lives are marked by a growing hunger after God Himself. They are eager for spiritual realities. They are athirst for God, and they will not be satisfied until they have drunk deep at the fountain of living water. Okay? That's the beginning of his the introduction to his book, In Pursuit of God. As a matter of fact, I have the book right here. A.W. Tozer, In Pursuit of God. Okay? That's a very beautiful quote. He's saying that there are some people who aren't satisfied until they find God. See, there's a lot of talk about God. There's a lot of talk about Jesus. See, there are a lot of people that go around and they try to lay a trip on you about God or about Jesus or about some other religion or some other philosophy. They try to lay a trip on you. And that includes all the religions of the world, and that includes atheists and the agnostics and the progressives and the communists. See, the communists are atheists. See, they not only don't believe in God, they're opposed to the idea of God. See, look at communist China. Look what they're doing there. They're imprisoning imprisoning and harassing the real Christians, the ones who meet in little churches, as they did in the early days of Christianity. They have a state-sponsored church, okay, which is official, and that's where everything's bland. Everything has been watered down, and there's no truth in it. There's no life in it. See? It's dead. It's phony. But the real church, they persecute, tear the crosses off of buildings and so on. Look over in the Middle East now what they're doing to the Christians. See, now that the stability is, now the Middle East has become destabilized, now Christians are being persecuted. In many of these Middle Eastern countries, they're being persecuted, killed even. Yes, and other awful things I don't even want to mention are being done to them. So the communists, see, and other religions that are opposed to Christianity, hate God. See, they don't. See, I'll give you another thing. Karl Marx. Okay, some people, the founder of communism. Some people think Karl Marx was an atheist. He was not. Karl Marx was not an atheist. He hated God. He hated God. Okay? He knew that God exists. He was not an atheist. He knew very well that God exists. But he hated God. Okay? So now, getting back to what I was saying earlier, there's a lot of talk about God and about Jesus. There's a lot of talk about God and about Jesus. Okay? And I enjoy hearing the radio. For example, I love listening to Christian radio. Where I live, there are 2 stations. I was on one of them. Yes, I was on one of the Christian stations. at different times over the years. See, I've been on the radio for 25 years. The latest time that I was on was a Saturday evening, I think at 8 o'clock, 7:30 or 8. Just really nice, but I couldn't afford it. Just couldn't afford to maintain it. But yes, so I love Christian radio. And then in nearby city, in nearby cities there are two other stations, so I can easily pick up 4 Christian stations. So I have my presets on my radio set to those 4, so I can go, around. Well, I have it set to 3 of them, so I can go to check what's on and then listen to whatever I'm enjoying. I love hearing the scripture, and I love talk about all kinds of religious topics and Christian topics. I love it. Okay, but what I'm trying to say is that just listening to talk about Jesus and just singing songs is not enough. Okay, and so as A.W. Tozer said, there are people who are athirst for God. That's a great expression. I think he came up with it. They're athirst for God. They want the real thing. See, for example, you can talk about the sun. Okay, you can write about the sun and talk about the sun and see pictures of the sun, but it's not the same thing as sitting on a beautiful warm afternoon on the grass in the warm sun, to actually experience the sun, the warmth of the sun and the brightness of the sun. Okay, that's the real thing. So people want the real thing in a nutshell. That's, I can't say it as eloquently as Mr. Tozer did, but I'm just saying people want the real thing. So how do you find the real thing? Well, here's a couple of clues. Okay, first of all, you have to accept, you have to be willing to accept the truth without resenting the truth. Okay? You have to be willing to accept the truth without resenting it, especially the truth about you. So I'll give you a simple example. Simple example. Let's say that there's a mom, and she's texting her friend something not important, when they're going to meet to go to the shopping mall or something, and just nothing important. And her little daughter comes up, Mom, with a question. You know how children come up with questions? Then Mom shoos her away and said, leave me alone. What? I don't have time right now. See? Then the little girl tries again, and then the mom becomes impatient. Says, I told you, don't make me have to tell you again. Something like that. See, I can't express the awfulness of the impatience of impatient parents, but we'll just say it was something like that. Okay, so the little girl starts crying. Now the parent sees her crying. Now, at that point, if the parent realizes that she was impatient, she realizes in the light of truth, see, the light of truth, God's light of truth is always there. God's light of truth is always there. So it's amazing to me how people cannot see the truth. See, can you imagine how Christ always talked about the blind and the blind leading the blind, and he gave people sight. It was very symbolic. How can we live in God's light and not realize the truth? It'd be like a plant living in the sun. You know, there's the beautiful sunlight shining on the plant, and somehow the plant doesn't get the sunlight, even though it's shining right on the plant. And then the plant dies. See? Wouldn't make any sense. Although if the plant is dead, then the sunlight will merely burn it. So a lot of people are already dead in their sins. Christ talked about that. See? They're already dead in their sins. So the sun, the light, God's light, is of no avail. If anything, it burns them when they hear the truth. But let's say you have a mom and she's a decent mom, and then she realizes that she was impatient. Now, what do you do at that when you realize that you were impatient? You admit it in your heart. I was impatient. Then you go to your daughter and say, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was impatient. See? Now, the two extremes that parents go to, which are totally wrong, one extreme is to simply deny it. See? To deny it and say, well, I was busy, or I had a rough day at the office, or I'm tired, or see, or just pretend it didn't happen. That's most likely. Just sweep it under the rug. Change the subject. Did you do your homework yet? See, change the subject. Like it, see? Unfinished business, they call that. Have you lived with people who do that? It's very difficult to live with people who don't want to admit the truth. See, for somebody like me, it's so easy. That's why I'm fun to be with, easy to be with. If you don't mind the truth, that is, because I'm lighthearted and I easily admit the truth. But some people are stubborn; they won't admit the truth. The other wrong extreme the parents go to is they go to the child and say, "Oh, can you forgive me?" See, which is wrong, because that's putting the person you're asking them to forgive you in God's place. See, God forgives. Other people can't forgive you. God forgives. But to others you can apologize and then to clear the air. So you apologize to them and say you're sorry, but you don't ask them to forgive you. See, you understand that? Okay. Other parents are guilty, guilty, guilty for neglecting the children, for using the TV as a babysitter, for using the iPhone as a babysitter. See, for using the tablet as a babysitter, for giving the children video games, for letting the kids go out in the streets and smoke marijuana, for not being there for the kids, and for being impatient, and for many other things, foolish, abandoning the children to the vile school system. Whatever else the parents have done wrong, they're very guilty. And how are they guilty? In God's light. See? But so then they go overboard trying to be extra nice, do more for the child to assuage the guilt, which only makes things worse. So the bottom line is, whenever you hear the truth, or someone speaks the truth, or you realize the truth, then honor the truth. Admit it. Okay? Honor it. And don't try to deny it, and don't resent it. See? Especially when you see in the light of truth that you're impatient, or you're phony, or you're being dishonest, or you're being sneaky, or you're being resentful, see, or selfish. See? Most people don't want to admit any of those things, so that's why they deny the truth. They find a way not to see the truth. They find a way to get around it. See? And they try to suppress the truth. They don't let you express yourself. If you're a kind of person who tends to speak the truth, then they'll try to find a way to suppress you. They'll talk over you. They won't hear what you said. They'll deliberately misinterpret what you said. They'll pretend they didn't hear it. They'll pretend nothing happened. The games people play are endless. See? Wouldn't it be much better simply to admit the truth? So that's one thing that you need to be willing to do in order to find God. Okay? That's one thing you need to be willing to do to find God. So I think I made a nice video here. I don't need to go on and on. I think I gave you something to think about. And you need to be able to become still. You need to be able to become still. See, we're always reaching for our iPhone, reaching for a magazine, reaching for a conversation. We're always reaching. We use everything to deny. Deny, deny, deny. Deny what? Deny the truth. Deny the truth that we're not living right, and then deny the truth that we're trying to deny the truth. See? All right. So let me read it one more time. May I read it one more time? It's very nice. This is from A.W. Tozer. It's from the book In Pursuit of God. It's a very nice book. And here's a quote. In this hour of all but universal darkness, one cheering gleam appears. Within the fold of conservative Christianity, there are to be found increasing numbers of persons whose religious lives are marked by a growing hunger after God Himself. They are eager for spiritual realities. They are athirst for God, and they will not be satisfied until they have drunk deep at the fountain of living water. Okay? Jesus said, "Come unto me, all of you who are heavily laden, and I will give you rest." And He also said, "Come unto me." See? Um, He said something about being the fountain of living water. My name is Roland.